Welcome to the show, a show where we review TV shows each month. We are a group of friends. I'm Aaron. We've got Eric with us, Adam, and Jay. We're going to kind of do an expedited episode because everybody's busy this week in quarantine. But this month we did Avenue 5, which is a fantastic HBO show. And before we get started, let's do a quick catch-up. Eric, how are you doing?
I'm well. Keeping
anything special in quarantine?
Let's see. I got a carpet pad for my rug, so now let's say 60% of my square footage is now padded. It's nice.
Does it make you feel like a player or a bachelor?
A bachelor for having padded carpet? No. Like a prime bachelor, yes. But just a bachelor, no.
Okay, what about you, Adam? How are things with you?
Things are pretty good. Things haven't changed very much for me considering the nature of my job, but outside of that...
Thank you, Adam.
Oh, no problem.
I'll give Adam a round of applause for his essential job.
Happy to help. But, no, some crazy times. Outside of that, though, Avenue 5 was pretty good.
Well, hey, we'll get to that in just a second. We're just doing it. Hey, how you doing?
Okay.
Jay, how are you doing?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm doing pretty well. I'm mostly just doing everything I can to not watch Tiger King.
I can relate to that.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I refuse to watch it.
Seven episodes of white trash in Oklahoma. So...
Yeah, it's like Trailer Park Boys, but real.
It's just my own particular brand of
too close to home.
Yeah, because it's true.
It's just my own brand of reactionary assholery, where once I reach a critical mass of people telling me to watch something, I'm just not going to watch it.
Yep. Anti-conformist.
Contrarian. This is basically Eric's flavor of tasting things in general. Well, somebody says that they like it, he's like, "Oh, I obviously won't like it then."
That's why I want to watch Wild Whites of West Virginia.
It's just the same thing. It's good. I've seen it. I saw it 10 years ago.
Now.
It's literally being. That doesn't change the content.
So
because no one's watching this, I'm going to like it a lot better.
The only thing that you have going for it is that everyone is watching it and you all have something to talk about. It's so stupid.
It's really
stupid. Did you see Billy West put on that really tight tank top? Oh, it did not look good on her. Oh my goodness. There you go. Just times that by 100. There you go. You got a show.
And the summation of the show has been completed. I hope we don't vote for Tiger King after this. That's all I'm saying.
It's technically not a TV show.
Well, it technically is a TV show.
I would agree with Adam. A docuseries is definitely a TV show. But anyways, Jay, how are things though, other than Tiger King?
Oh yeah, things are fine. Just making the best of it.
What's for dinner?
Sausage.
Ooh.
Yeah, my in-laws are German, and they enjoy some of the finer things when it comes to German cuisine. So,
are they like Texan Germans? Like their family are part of the long line of Texan Germans that came over in the 1800s, or are they actually they came from Germany recently?
Jay, are we related?
They are not Texas Germans. They are like my father-in-law's father was born in Germany.
Okay, so recent immigrants.
Father-in-law. You're German by in-law?
Yeah, I guess so.
His wife is German. He's Irish.
Right. Amongst other things. We're all mutts at this point.
Technically true.
And Elon is trying to change that and make us into one breed, a hybrid breed.
You stop that.
Borg is among us. This is April 5th, 2020. Elon Musk is trying to turn us into Borg.
Tesla is where Borg starts.
Well, Aaron, have you had your shot at how's it going?
Not really. It's going pretty well. It was actually today is my sister's birthday. Tomorrow's my mom's birthday. My mom turned 60. My sister turned 28. So it's they didn't. We were planning a big surprise party for my mom, but weren't able to do that.
Surprise!
So, but we did play Air Pictionary, where you draw like in the air, and they try and guess what you're drawing. It's very hard. So it was just got together with my parents, had dinner. But Air Pictionary, yeah, it was funny because like you, the drawer, is using a light pen to draw in the air, and the camera's catching it and casting it to the TV, and your team is trying to guess what you're drawing. But the things that they had for you to draw were not necessarily intuitive, like a lot of them, like division. You're like, oh,
What?
Let me draw
an idea.
Yeah, let me draw a concept. Or like sheet, and you're like, okay, sheet, okay, I draw a square with some squigglies on it, and people are shouting out page, book. Oh, it's like, okay, well then draw a bed. Why is there a bed next to a square with squigglies?
Draw
like
a rectangle. No, it's just a rectangle. No.
Yeah, it was like I'm redrawing the same thing over and over again to try and get them to just keep guessing words that would be what this is. But it was not easy.
Yeah,
but it was fun. It was fun though. It was a lot of laughs.
Huh.
So, but I guess now with that said, who wants to give the rundown of Avenue 5? What the general overview of the story?
I'll give the rundown.
All right, Eric, you are
I haven't
rundown
run down
king.
in a while.
I'll
do my best to cover it with a broad stroke, and y'all can fill in all the gaps that I leave out.
As an obscure, maybe.
So this is essentially a Truman Show spaceship television series where people are encouraged.
I can't really agree with that right off the bat.
Truman
I see where
Show.
he's going with it.
Space is safe. It's just visual effects.
Yeah, but it's like space is fake if you compare it to Truman.
Okay. I'm only joking, and the joke is relevant if you've seen the series. So,
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Avenue 5 is spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show. If you haven't seen this show,
We will give spoilers.
so essentially what this is I don't know the characters' names, but this is one of the Doctor Who's, right?
Hugh Laurie,
Doctor-
I think
No.
Adam Paulson is.
Hugh Laurie was Dr. House, not Doctor Who.
Dr. House. Thank you. So House is essentially a captain of a tourist cruise liner spaceship, and they are pretty much drifting in space because I didn't catch if that was the premise, if they're just a slingshot cruise ship, but essentially have 1,000 to 3,000 tourists just on this space shuttle that's adrift in space. Something has gone wrong, and now their math is calculating that they won't be back to Earth for about 3 years.
It was an 8-week cruise around
the Rio
solar
captain
system.
died.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what's
but the
going wrong.
8-week cruise around the solar system, there was a gravitational pod failure, which caused the ship to shift the gravity to the side of the ship, and everybody in the ship flew to that side.
The whole time? Were they?
No,
they're
they're on a cruise.
Or
They're on an 8-week cruise. The cruise has a planned destination and a planned path, and it was supposed to slingshot at a certain point. When they hit the side of the ship, when that gravitational failure happened and the guy flew into the screwdriver and died, that shifted the ship 0.2 degrees to the left.
They weren't very clear on that. I didn't catch that. That happened in like the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, so this was very beginning of the show. Is like they have this failure, and whenever she comes up, what's the mechanic girl's name? Billy. When Billy comes up to the captain and she's like, when we hit the side, we diverted off course by 0.2 degrees. He's like, oh, that's not that bad. She goes, well, that means our trip's now going to go from 8 weeks to 3.5 years or 3 years. So that's when it kind of like sets the stage for the whole series, is that there's been this cataclysmic accident at the beginning, which doesn't seem that cataclysmic, just really bad. And the ship is now off course.
But the show is really set up in more of a sitcom kind of environment where they give you this situation, and then the characters really just are themselves. You have
That's their acting.
yeah, I don't. You have Zach
Sarah.
Woods, you have Josh Gad. Zach Woods as Matt Spencer. He was kind of like the psychotherapist on the cruise ship. He's one of
He
my
was the
favorite
customer
characters.
relations
Mhm.
person.
The nihilist.
Customer relations. No, he
very
became
nihilistic.
the therapist, or
And
brought it
took on
on
that
himself.
Well, he was acting as a therapist because of the trauma.
So then this cruise ship is pretty much drifting through space, off course. Ground control is trying to work with NASA. Everyone's trying to figure out how to solve this problem. And while this is going on, everyone's discovering certain things about the ship, such as the crew is theatrics.
The captain is just an actor.
The captain is just an actor, quite literally in the show as well. So he has to maintain character by having an American accent for the space, but he's a British character. I don't know if he's British in real life. What is he in real life? Is he
He's
British?
His accent is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he was British, but I do not know personally.
He is British.
He is.
He is British. One thing I really enjoyed about that was that he was also contractually obligated to have a beard because that seemed more comforting for people to have a bearded captain.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't catch that.
And he was a polygamist.
Yeah, and he was.
He was
He
in
had
a
a
three-way
husband and
marriage.
wife.
Just like the Tiger King.
The way I see this show is Orville, but much more satirical and also filled with incompetence.
That's a good way to put it.
Like no one knew what they were doing. In Orville, at least, like, hey, the captain's acting like a captain. In this, he's like, oh god, what is captain?
Right.
Well,
Another big difference is that Orville was in the distant future, while this is a much more near future.
Mhm.
And something that I really enjoyed was a lot of those references to things like how they moved the White House to Buffalo, and they make references to like the Huawei wars and all of these things that we might foresee happening in the next, say, like 100 years.
Yeah, no, that was really good. I remember texting Jay in the middle of this. I was like, Jay, is this show a metaphor for how bad the Trump administration is handling the COVID crisis? And he was like, it is a show about a bunch of people incompetent trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, definitely true.
Pretty much the story of humanity ever.
I guess you could say that.
Well, Billy knows what she's doing to some extent.
Yeah.
Why did it
And
take
see,
her
that's
so
the
long to
thing.
figure
It's
it out?
like you have this actor crew that everyone sees, no idea what they're doing, complete fakes. Nothing they actually control works. And then you have the actual crew, which is like under deck. And I'm not sure if y'all have seen. Oh, what's that show? Well, Walla. Come on, you know it.
Well, wow.
The Expanse.
The Expanse. I'm not sure if you've seen The Expanse, but it definitely has like a much more realistic, gritty feel with how the spaceships are laid out, and that's exactly what the real crew's quarters look like, or at least working quarters.
Underneath the
Yeah.
real deck or underneath the fake deck is the real deck.
It's like,
Yeah,
hey,
that's
this is not built for show. This is built for practicality.
Yeah, that's something I really appreciated about the show is that, like, again, to contrast it with Orville, like, we're not talking about warp drive or any kind of, like, fantastical technologies. It's really a little bit more grounded in what space flight might actually be.
No, my biggest problem with the show, if you're going to go there, like practicality or whatever else, is this ultimate solution to them drifting in space was for them to put a ginormous space dock in space with 500 different space shuttles. Why not just tow the thing in? If you're going to put an airport in space, why not just tow the thing in? Well, if they
inertia, like
they only had like
space
24 hours
objects
to be in
move
the
at
zone.
anywhere from 2,000 miles an hour, or maybe it's meters a second, to like 10,000 meters a second. So matching that speed in and of itself is difficult.
Matching,
And
they
then
visited the shuttle with another ship.
Mhm.
Another ship docked with
and
this.
that ship was very small and only had space for 2 people.
Mm.
So it's not like, oh, we can just send another ship to dock. No, that's like billions, if not trillions,
I don't
of
know where the
dollars just to
motors
send a
are.
ship out.
I never knew where the motors were on Avenue 5. Where were the engines?
I don't know that there
I assume
are.
at the rear of the ship. Well, there's engines.
What
There
happened?
would be adjusters, but it looks like it was all on inertia. That's the whole point of the cruise.
Yeah, it was like a slingshot cruise. It was like, hey guys, y'all want to have fun with math and go around Jupiter? Yeah, is your math correct? Yeah, sure, I think.
Because it's not like
Well,
they
it
did
was.
anything other than inject a bunch of stuff out of the ship to change the trajectory. They never like said, "Oh, we'll add this power or change the engine levels."
Right.
Yeah, all this really kicks off when the real captain dies, the guy who would be responsible for maintaining the course and fixing any problems that arise. And then in that interlude of, oh, we have no real captain anymore, Hugh Laurie steps up and problems start occurring with the ship that no one really knows how to deal with because the only person who would was dead. So it's left to the rest of the actual crew to kind of pick up the slack and say, oh, wait, that's not working right. But more often than not, they notice a little late. And that's when chaos starts to ensue.
I mean, I like the show in the sense that they had to create their own problems for the sake of the show. The oxygen thing did not have to happen, but I love that it did.
Right.
So
beeping,
essentially,
that was a
they
fun
had a
episode.
baby. They had a baby, and then the
Well,
whole time
before you get into this, I feel like we've kind of left out something. We've talked about the crew a whole bunch, but we haven't really talked about the people
Owner.
on the ship because they're a huge part of this story. I mean, Karen, you know, the couple that's fighting constantly. You have Mr. Judd and his assistant. I mean,
Yeah, you
all
have a
these
lot- you have a
characters
lot of players
are a
from
huge
the-
part of the story.
Rav's a pretty big part too.
They're not the crew. What do you freaking call the passengers?
It's the passengers, yeah. It's the people who paid to be there for 8 weeks. Damn.
It's a long time.
And then one couple left their kid in a coma, and they thought they would be back before he woke up.
That is such a cruel joke. That episode where everybody thought that it was like they were on a. There's an episode where everybody comes to believe that they're on a TV show, like a reality show, and this is like really in Los Angeles. And if they walk out the
airlock,
that they're going to be out in the middle of California, and it's not true. And a bunch of people just kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
No, because some dumb broad says,
I
"Okay,
work in
visual
VFX.
effects.
I just work in VFX." Look,
This is just VFX, guys. All that's
stands for visual
happening is
effects.
just visual effects.
That stands for visual effects, guys.
And so to come to grips with their situation, the customer relations character comes out and says, guys, it is a projection. It's
It
all
is a simulation.
All of life is a simulation. The universe is a simulation. But if you go out there, you will die in this simulation. And then it's like, what?
Yeah, the nihilist is very convoluted. In his
7
explanation.
people go out the airlock to kill themselves, all gruesomely vivid and everything.
It was
And
the
then
most graphic
wakes
part
up
of the whole
immediately.
series.
It was pretty
Like,
graphic.
have you ever seen Space Cowboys? It looks like that.
It's like, I feel responsible. It's like, your words were confusing.
Yeah. That was bad. But that I honestly I thought that was a good commentary on like, hey, people be crazy out in space. People
Well, I think just a
start
good commentary on
getting
people
real
being crazy in general.
Well, yes, but also like that isolation had to have had some effect on them. That
Can
ability
y'all
to
relate?
not just
Hashtag
be able-
relatable.
Hashtag relate.
Hashtag
Yeah.
COVID-19.
right?
No, they can at least go to their parks and do yoga and stuff. Like
They can
ours
do
is
that, but
more
if they
limited.
can't leave the ship, they feel stuck there.
Uh-oh.
And when all of a
That's getting
sudden-
too relatable to some people out on the cruise ships know what I mean.
And when all of a sudden this opportunity presents itself, it's like, oh wait, this is all fake. I can leave. I think a lot of people were really willing to grab for that. That being said, they weren't smart to begin with.
Oh my
Like,
god.
holy crap! And
So,
it really
hey,
showed.
Let's go around and kind of do favorite aspects of the show because I want to bring up a couple that I thought were ingenious. One, the delay and the frustration associated with the delay in the phone calls from Earth
That
to
was
the
really
ship.
good.
Yes.
That was really good.
I
pretty
died laughing.
It was like a
seeing
30
Judd's
second delay.
Yeah, 30-second delay. Oh my god, how to have
It
it's
was like a
writing
minute
letter.
and a half.
Like,
You
okay, I
had
just want to go
time.
ahead and start talking because I know y'all can't hear me, and blah 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 blah. It's like
Yep.
you can't even respond to all the bad news.
Okay, the next thing was in the Ping episode where a passenger had a baby and had it had set off the sensors to say that everything needed to be recalibrated, and so there was this ping every so often. Judd looks at the nihilist and says, I want a pre-ping notification to let me know when the ping's about to happen. That moment, I started laughing because the next ping comes up, and right before the nihilist is like, Judd, and he's like, all right, and bing, it was just so funny how it like started this kind of physical humor with the ping. Josh Gad's character through the whole series, he is so good at being awful. He was fantastic.
It was almost like he was a plant to make the situation worse.
Go ahead and explain his character. We haven't really touched on him.
Judd is the owner of the cruise line, so he is on this voyage to make sure everything is up and that everybody is happy, and he's like this kind of like bumbling idiot man baby kind of thinks he's a genius.
He's definitely
but really
like a rich kid.
He's a rich kid who got in on a good deal or a good idea, but like is a little too full of himself. Like, oh, his Beatles skull lamp or whatever, like that was pretty funny. But he basically like thinks he's hot shit, but he's not really.
Thinks he's a genius, but is not.
Yeah, he had a Post-it note on like a little like stand that's like, this is the note that had my my big idea, and it's like outer space on a Post-it note, and he's like, obviously this is not the real one, this is a recreation. Like I thought his character was fantastic, but he also was horrible. Like as a boss, as a human being, he was pretty terrible because obviously he was the manifestation of capitalism. He was only worried about the money, and that was like the context of everything. Mm-hmm. So what about you, Jay?
I'd 100% agree with that about Josh Gad. A lot of times he grates on me, but here as this like awful, petty little bitch, like he was great. And I also really enjoyed Zach Wood's performance and his character, how kind of in that same way, he was always trying to do everything he could to like keep the cruise going and make sure that it was still going to be making money. And one of my favorite aspects of the show was the advertisements with him that you'd see periodically throughout the ship, where he'd be like, hey, come on down to the dance later. Unless you're agoraphobic, then you shouldn't.
Those were brilliant.
He was pretty funny.
They did do a lot of work and selling that aspect of it, because like once you're stuck in space, then you have to shoot new advertisements for the new things that you have to do.
Yeah, come to the halfway home party, even though we're nowhere near halfway home.
I also really enjoyed the comedian and how he'd do these jokes that were they were decently funny and just no one laughed. And
it was like he was intentionally bad. And isn't that the guy from Yesterday?
The
Beatles movie?
It's exactly what it is. I actually watched part of the show, then went and watched Yesterday one night and was like, oh shit, it's this guy. It was just like blown away. He's a great actor.
Wait, who is he? What's he
on? He's in Yesterday. It's a movie about a guy who gets transferred to a parallel universe where the Beatles never existed, and he only knows.
It's the main character.
Is the main character from that movie?
Oh,
yes.
I haven't seen the movie. Is it good?
It's pretty good. It's worth watching, especially if you like the Beatles.
Huh. No, the comedian in this was pretty good. Well, it was good that it was bad. I don't know if I caught any like great jokes, but what else, Jay?
He was like witty funny. He wasn't ha-ha funny.
I mean, I could probably go on forever about stuff that I found funny about this show, so I'll cede the floor to the next person.
Well, okay. I can't believe none of us have mentioned the laser turds.
Yeah.
So
That happened.
so
This is brilliant about the shit being a shield for cosmic radiation.
wait. Did they need? They didn't need this to happen.
No, the feces is already being used as part of the ship's design
but the pump
as
got
a
backed
shield.
up or
It's
something.
the
Yeah.
shit shield.
The shit shield got clogged and it started spewing, and because the ship's so big, it has its own gravitational field, and the shit got caught in orbit.
So
Along with the corpses
all the
of
shit is floating
11
around.
people.
I think it's like
crew,
5
7
people.
of them. What's it called? The people in ice also got stuck in the gravitational pull.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like several people who passed away from other things, including the captain encapsulated in some sort of like solid gold casket, is stuck in the gravitational pull as well. So once all the septic fluid flies out into space and doesn't leave the ship's gravitational pull, now you have a ring of shit turds floating around the ship. And then Josh Gad, several episodes later, is like, "How do I make the people like me? I need the people to like me. I need to improve their situation. I need to illuminate the turds with lasers and glitter." So he comes up with this. It actually ends up being pretty good. I mean,
It's a good shit
visual
show for
effects in the
sure.
show. Yeah, it's a shit show. But I mean, everyone's looking at it in awe. And then like the most realistic characters, like Billy, is just like, you're looking at turds. You're looking at turds.
Well,
Yeah.
and it also brings out a great aspect of human nature, in that any situation, human nature is going to lead to something. Well, it's gonna lead to like something religious, and like after the shit lasers, you get like what's his name, the husband of Karen,
Jerry, was it?
Jerry. Yeah, he sees the Pope in the shit, and he's like, I see it, and I'm here to help other people to see it too. Like, he
I like
gets
the
purpose.
closeout for the episode just before that. Like all 3 of them are down there looking at the shit show, and he's like, 2 of them are like, no, I don't see that. And he's like, no, I see it. And then the next episode, it's like all about that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Can I also? I want to bring up something like the
Say it.
astronaut, the other astronaut on the ship, the one that's like the cool guy who,
The older guy,
the old astronaut who's trying to hit on all the moms.
Ethan Phillips.
He, number one, not very good at being an astronaut, because when he was on the bridge numerous times, he didn't realize everything was fake.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he was completely oblivious to it, like throughout most of it.
He's the one that thought the beep was the
the air running out, yeah. And then like when he's like, well, of course, yeah. If
they were dumb to listen to him on that.
exactly, that's what I mean.
Well,
It's
it's
like,
kind of like if you had somebody who's really proficient in technology from like the 70s and 80s, and then you gave them an iPhone. They're not going to be at the same level of proficiency. That's what it felt like to me anyways. It's like he's kind of past time. He's retired. He doesn't really know how the new stuff works. So he's just like, oh, this looks fancy.
Well, like a real engineer in that situation, Billy would have been like, wait, well, you don't know that. Like, I can go look at that real quick. Wait, don't panic.
And he technically wasn't wrong about the beep, because it did mean the oxygen was running out. It just didn't mean that the rocks... It had something to do with it. Yeah. Like, if they didn't adjust for the extra passenger, they would have ran out of oxygen. He just, like, escalated the situation to the umpteenth degree. Like, outside of Billy, he seemed like the second most knowledgeable person. And it's funny, because they didn't put him in a role.
Well, they got... Okay, so one of the engineers from below deck said, oh, my calculations say that we're going to get there 6 months sooner, so 2.5 years. Oh, wait. And then, like, an episode or the same episode later, like, oh, no, 3.5 years.
No, he was saying that it was going to be only 6 months to get home. Then he came back and says, no, I was wrong. That's actually... I didn't account for the 500 additional passengers that won tickets at the last minute. And so that's actually going to be 6 additional months based off my calculation. So 3 years and 6 months. And he was like, you know, the captain was obviously pissed. But that actor... Eric, I know you remember this other space. He was the robot guy from Other Space.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who was
the engineer the other engineer. He's in a bunch of stuff, but he's in Other Space.
Jay, whatever I called you, that was the show. Other Space is a really good one.
It was on Yahoo Screens, Jay. That's how old it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a while. I didn't even know Yahoo had a video platform service.
It was established in 2006. It lasted for 13 years.
Oof.
I mean, that's what the last season of Community was on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So favorite characters. What are y'all's favorite characters? I'm not sure if we already went over this.
Definitely customer relations guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna agree with that one.
He was pretty good. He did a pretty good performance, like acting wise. He like nailed that character. Hugh Laurie was fantastic. It's not to take away from anybody else's performance.
What about you, Adam?
If I had to say which character I like the most, it would probably be Billy, just because she seemed to like nail the "I'm smart and I'm frustrated with all the stupid people" role. But if I had to say
she wasn't smart enough. She wasn't smart enough.
It was probably Hugh Laurie. Like he was constantly switching between two accents. That can't be the easiest thing to do. And
it was impressive.
He was also, I don't know, he emoted very well. So, I mean, I'm not a professional, but it seemed like he put on a very good performance. So I'd have to say Hugh Laurie was probably the best actor of the show, but that's kind of to be expected as well, considering
his character was very meta in the whole show.
For sure. But favorite character-wise, I'd have to say Billy, just because it was like she's the only competent person on the ship. The other crew members, like, they know their stuff, but like we saw with the red-haired guy, I forgot his name, we were just talking about him. But like we saw with him, even though he did calculations, they were off. It was like she called that they were going to be off too. She was like, yeah, no, he's usually wrong with his calculations, but we'll check it out.
Slippery with his math.
Yeah. So like she seemed to be the only competent person, and even in that, realizing her own shortcomings. It's like, oh yeah, it took me like 4 years to learn to fly the ship. I'm not sure if I can. So definitely probably the saving of Avenue 5.
I hate scientific shows. Sorry, Adam. I hate scientific shows that skip on major. Like, why did it take so long to figure out the jettison technique? Why was math able to be wrong at all? And then if they don't have engines and they're not able to improve the ship's trajectory from the ship itself, why is the solution to put a ginormous, unimaginably large airport to dock at? Oh, hey, you know what? We're just going to give you 1,000 little ships. Like, why is that the solution? Let's go dock another ginormous arc.
Well, if I can handle these one at a time, I think that for the first two, the math being wrong and like the jettison.
It was because they didn't take in calculations for the additional people on the ship. They said that in the show.
Well, yeah, but I'm more so talking about like why it could happen. I think it comes down to the captain was really carrying the ship and the crew. He was experienced. He knew how to make this run. And all of a
capitalism
sudden,
cutting corners and hiring just the bare minimum of people they needed to run it, and then everything else was all glam.
For sure. And it really showed when they kind of showed how fake the set was, and even underneath, like how cheap it looked down there. I mean, it looks like it's budget as hell, even though it looks nice on the surface. And when they lost the captain, it was like, he's the one who knew everything. Yeah, not Hugh Laurie, the real captain, Joe.
We'll call him Joe.
When they lost Joe, it was like, yeah, he's the one who knew everything. We kind of know a little bit, but not really enough to pilot a ship on our own. And then that's when panic started ensuing, and all these problems started going off. And
well, I think if they were going to go in that direction, it would have been nice if they gave you a little bit of like character development of how smart and how
important
much you
Joe
needed
was.
The captain. Because we never saw the captain. Is that right?
I mean, he was outside talking on a microphone
Yeah, we caught a
then
little
the
bit of
gravity
him.
well
And he seemed like he
fell.
knew what he was doing. in
Yeah,
that
but then the
moment he had.
gravity thing failed, and he flew into the
Spike.
screwdriver and killed himself.
Huh.
But I think we've kind of here identified one of the ways the show stumbles for me, which is that like a lot of it was kind of transparent in the contrived situations. Why? Well, because plots. Like, for example, the whole thing about how only one person's handprints can be used to fly the ship and dock it, like that just felt really transparently contrived to me.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like a plot mechanic just to force Hugh Laurie into another awkward situation.
Yeah.
I can totally agree with you there. Like, it was like, he's incompetent, so therefore we have to give him all the difficult stuff. How do we make that happen?
It was a little awkward.
Oh,
of
well,
him sitting
only
in
one
the
person
space-
can use the handprint, so it has to be the captain. Yeah, that doesn't make much sense. You're totally spot on with that. And if that was the case, why isn't Joe's handprint the one that saved?
It is the one that
Why
was saved,
couldn't
but
you
his
change-
hands were crushed.
So why can't you change it at all? And why can you only?
I
change it
don't
once?
understand why. Yeah, they can't just change it. There should be a reason to be able to
Mhm.
for Hugh Laurie to log in and then switch it over to Billy.
I don't know.
Well,
Maybe they
well,
explained it in the show, but I don't
They
remember.
didn't.
Well,
being
same
explained in
thing.
the show.
Same thing with the airlock. Whenever
The
Matt
nihilist gives the
Spencer-
password.
Yeah, whenever he changes the airlock. Oh, well, we're all stuck here now. No one else can change the password. Not even the fake captain or the real engineers. The customer relations guy did it.
Yeah, like I feel like if you,
But you gotta
Yeah,
get-
why did he
like,
have
I-
any power at all?
well, he had to make sure that the
Well,
customers.
that's where
But
the.
why does
the-
he know codes? Why can he change codes?
Well, that's why the rules of physics and sci-fi are really loosely applied to this show.
Why
I think
would the security
it was
be
a
in
good
charge of the
sitcom,
codes?
but it bugged me with some of its solutions.
Well, and I think that's because it was more so about satire and incompetence than it was about like, hey, this is a sci-fi show.
Yeah, imagine if this is the exact same show, but it being a non-comedy. Imagine a drama where this happens and it's not funny. Okay? And I feel like a lot of your criticisms I would agree with. Like if this was the new Stargate cruise ship, and this was what we're watching, that'd be one thing. But it really is just kind of like it's like Other Space. How high of a bar are you going to hold Other Space to in that
No,
regard?
I agree.
Fair.
Yeah, this didn't really feel like a sci-fi show in the traditional sense. Yeah, they're in space, but it's like it more so centers on, hey, look at everybody and how stupid they are and how much they fuck up, and that's funny, right? And it's funny to a certain extent. The
I laughed
catastrophe of failures
I
that
laughed pretty
happen
hard.
towards the end. It's just like, wow, that spiraled out of control real quick.
I felt like the airlock scene was also kind of a cultural commentary on our fake news epidemic in this country and in this world, because it was kind of like once the idea started spreading, it started doing damage, and
Well,
no
it
matter
became
how
fact,
hard,
like,
hold on,
real quick.
it just no matter how hard anyone tried to convince someone that this fake idea that they had heard was not true, you couldn't do it. And people watched people die. They watched it be proven to them with their own eyes and not be true.
And they still went for it.
And they still went for it.
Mhm.
And so the power of an idea, it is almost a scary thing to watch. Because that was the hardest sequence for me to watch in the whole series.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a
completely agree.
direct
It's watching people
commentary
be
or analogy.
not
but-
just ignorant. Yes, they were ignorant, but they were also stupid. They refused to learn. And it was all on the advice of an SFX.
I was really waiting. Sorry, Adam. Go
She
ahead.
made it fact. I know, it was just it really spiraled out of control because people heard information and they were like, "Oh, well, this is fact now," because obviously this is an expert, without verifying, without consulting with others.
I was waiting for it to get
This is
really
true.
grim, and then them actually jettison 500 people.
I thought that's where it was going for. They looked to be like
I
about.
thought it was really going to happen.
The
It was
luck,
gonna
I thought
take
they were all
5
just going to
people.
file out. It's like, okay, well, that's a problem solved now.
Like, oh, okay.
They all volunteered. I mean,
Well, the at the very end of the show, they eject the cargo out of the wrong side,
Yeah.
and Judd's assistant gets sent back to Earth by accident, due to the timings of the autopilot on the ship, which I thought was hilarious. How many different people got into the escape shuttle at the
Who ended
end?
up leaving? Who ended up
It
leaving?
was Judd's assistant, the Asian
Iris?
lady.
Iris.
Iris,
Honestly,
yes.
the pilot, the best way that could have worked out was the pilot of the ship that got sent to save Judd stays because it's
And
on
flies
autopilot. The ship going home. He flies Avenue 5, and they
You
send
can't fly.
Judd.
You don't fly Avenue 5.
Well, you do. You do.
You have to
Well,
you have to maneuver into the landing area.
Yeah.
Because that Hugh Laurie is trying to learn for like an episode and a half. Oh, I have to fly Avenue 5. So you do land it. You have to fly it.
He
and
was pretty
he,
obnoxious there,
in
too.
all his simulations, destroys the ship within approximately like 10 seconds. So having the actual pilot it. But no, of course, I get that the show's point was, hey, everything goes wrong. But I think having it
Adam.
go right once or twice would have made the times when it went wrong like more effective. But every time I knew the outcome was, oh, this is going to go as bad as it can. So it was extremely predictable in that thing. Since they never got a win, it was just, well, this is just going to catastrophically fail. And I guess we'll see some comedy along the way.
All right, well
It
then
felt
let's.
very low budget for HBO. It felt very low budget for
This
HBO.
was HBO.
Yeah.
I guess all the budget was put into Hugh Laurie.
I think the low budgetness was part of the show. Like, I really think it was just kind of like a, hey, y'all want to just do a. I don't even know what the pilot of the show is. I don't even know. I don't even know what like the premise. It's a good. I guess it's a good premise.
A space cruise ship has catastrophic failure and loses its real captain, and the incompetent crew tries to figure out a way home.
That doesn't
But
seem like an HBO thing.
I think it's definitely a gamble on something different and interesting. But with that, because of our time constraints, let's go ahead and give our ratings for the show. So Jay, do you want to take us through the scoring?
Sure. We always score these shows on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the best score. For me, this is a solid 7 show. As a sitcom, I'd say it's an 8.5 to a 9 because it made me laugh a lot. I really enjoyed the characters. There were little jokes, there were big jokes. Loved it. The reason why it's a 7 as a show overall, I think, is kind of the related to a lot of these discussions we've had over the course of this episode, where a lot of times the mechanics of the problems they were creating either weren't explained well, or I just missed them, or just didn't really make a lot of sense. So not a perfect show, definitely enjoyable, and it has been renewed for season 2, and I'm definitely going to be watching season 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fair.
Yeah, I will too.
Fair.
All right, next let's go to Adam.
I'm probably gonna have to nail the show with I'll go with 6.5. I was leaning towards 6, but I'll go with 6.5 because I did laugh at the jokes. I did laugh at the show. I thought it was funny, but it really comes back to that element of predictableness. Like, there's nothing in the show that caught me by surprise. There was almost no character development, which you may say you don't need it, but for a sitcom, I think you do need a little bit of character development. And I didn't really see that. I saw Hugh Laurie throughout the entire show be the same incompetent wannabe captain that got drunk, and that didn't change up into the last episode. It was just, I wish I could have seen a little bit more growth. But when it comes to jokes and comedy, I thought it was spot on. I thought it did good in that aspect. So I'm going to go with 6.5. And I will watch season 2.
I thought it was good in the haha department.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right, next up, Eric.
I like the show. I think my favorite part about it was that it got a little bit grim. I think Zach Woods, the nihilist, made the show. He added a lot of, like, if everyone's just going to add their own little spice, he added a really good amount of vinegar or something. I think Josh Gad, everyone had a really good character. I think it's just odd that it's an HBO show. Yeah, I just consider HBO to be kind of more like the serious shows or like the dramas.
This is definitely more of like a TNT show or a CBS.
This
I get what you're saying with that.
This kind of felt like an attempt at like a macabre comedy or something. But I liked it. I'm going to give this because it was funny, because it legitimately had a humor element to it that I think was unique to this cast. I'm going to give it a 7. I'm going to give it a 6.5. 6.5 as well. I want to give it a 6.72, but I don't want to make the math complicated.
Comes back to what we were talking about earlier.
6.5 from Eric. Last up, we got Aaron.
All right. So, number one, I watched through the entire series of House and just adore Hugh Laurie. And so this, first off, was like a huge wave of nostalgia in a weird way. Just to see him talking with the British accent, talking with the English accent. I really enjoyed it. All the characters involved, I really feel like they did a good job of kind of interweaving how the different type of personalities would react to a crisis such as this. Those who would take advantage of it, those who would, go unhinged by it, those who would step up to be leaders. That to me was where the strength of the show was. It was not so much in the science or in the realism of the story, but in the realism of how different people react in a panic or in a crisis situation. Since we're kind of in a crisis situation in our country, it's interesting to see some of the parallels and the different things that happen in a crisis that we are seeing happening here. So to me, I really enjoyed the show. It was funny. I thought that those elements were insightful. And the Nihilist, I thought it was one of the best presentations of a nihilist, and then a nihilist having to come to terms with his own kind of philosophy that I'd ever seen with the passenger relations guy. So I'm going to give the show an 8. I thought it was well done, and I'm excited for season 2.
All right, we got an 8 from Aaron.
I think the show was very self-aware.
What is that? 7.2, 7.3?
It's just a straight up 7.
Oh, okay.
For Avenue 5. Oh, maybe Avenue 6. Maybe Avenue 6 will do better.
Yeah, so that puts it right about in the middle of shows we've reviewed.
Midstream.
It's worth checking out.
All right. Well, I think
not the best show in the world.
We can, we can choose our next show last time. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Jason, sign us off.
All right. So next time, Picard.
Is everybody cool with Picard? I'm down.
I honestly, I don't know. I've heard some things that make me kind of hesitant.
All right, well, we will discuss that off air. So thank you for joining us today for our review of Avenue 5. And
join us next time for a mystery show.
Yes.
Adios.
Adios.